Hello, everyone. Good morning. So, I guess we will start this program now. So, let me introduce myself one more time. My name is Hilman, and I'm currently the chair of the International Student Energy Summit 2015 Bali. And how was the opening ceremony? Did you have fun last night? Yeah, so I personally hope that you all enjoy the last night ceremony. So we are super excited now for our first full day of programming. And just a reminder for all of us and for all of you to tweet along with us at hashtag ISIS2015 and hashtag EnterNerd. So first up in this morning, we will have a very exciting plenary panel to keep up with the theme. So the title is Connecting the Unconnected, Energy Access, featuring high-level speakers who already sit here in front row. So you also remember amazing speech last night from Ms. Kelly Taylor. So Kelly Taylor is the co-founder and executive director of Student Energy. Prior to entering the charitable space, Kelly held numerous roles in energy industry, including business development, project management, and CO2 management. She was named one of Canada's top 25 environmentalists under 25 in 2011, and was named one of the Calgary top 40 under 40 in 2013. So without further ado, I would like to invite Kelly and the speakers to join me on the stage.
Thanks, Hillman. Nolene, you here. Perfect. I'll get you in the last one. Sri, I'll get you right here. Perfect. Right. Suleiman? Oh, it's okay. Oh. Whoops, sorry. Good morning. You can just use that one, Suleiman. All right, are we good? Good morning, everyone. How's it going? Good? Okay, good. So we have a bit of tradition at the summit of having the first panel be one of the best to open the whole conference. We always have hard-hitting questions, some really deep discussion, and very prestigious speakers, and I don't think this morning is going to disappoint when you see our panel here. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists, although I'll read you a little bit more about them later. But we have Nolene Hezer, who is the former Undersecretary General of the United Nations, Suleiman Al-Harbish, who's the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the OPEC Fund for International Development, Sri Ulani, who I'm sure you remember from last night, is the Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer of the World Bank. And thank you. And Kaveh Madani, who's a lecturer in environmental management at the Centre for Environmental Policy at Imperial College London. So as everyone knows, the theme of this conference is connecting the unconnected. So we thought we'd kick off a panel talking about energy access, energy poverty, and connecting the unconnected. But anyone on the team will tell you that connecting the unconnected is as much about energy as it is about connecting ideas. And I'm very excited for the diverse perspectives that you're going to get today. I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown on how we're going to structure this so everyone knows how they can participate. We're using a pretty unique technology that I'm going to run you through quickly as well before we get started. So the structure today is that each of our panelists are going to provide you with some opening comments and context around how they see energy access. These are going to be kind of different presentations from their viewpoint. We'll then go into an open discussion and debate, and all of you are welcome to participate through submitting questions on a piece of technology called Pigeonhole Live. So we first trialed Pigeonhole Live at the summit in Norway in 2013 to massive success because it basically allows us to democratize question asking at the conferences. So if all of you have a smartphone or a computer, you can connect the Wi-Fi and go to pigeonhole.at, and it will ask you for a session code. The code is all capitals, ISES 2015. And at that point, you'll be able to see a screen where you can ask questions, and most importantly, you can vote on other questions. So if your question has already been asked, you can vote on it. That will allow me to know what the most interesting or pressing questions in the room are, and I'll take those questions first throughout our panel. Additionally, I will take a couple questions from the microphones that you'll see at the middle as we get going in the Q&A. That's how things are going to run this morning. But to start, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context around what energy access means. According to the United Nations, approximately 1.5 billion people, or 1 in 5, lack access to electricity, and nearly double that, 2.5, lack modern energy for cooking and heating. This is what Sri was talking to us about last night. In 2011, Ban Ki-moon launched the Sustainable Energy for All initiative and a vision of making sustainable energy a reality by 2030. The goals of the initiative, there's three main ones. Provide universal energy access for modern energy services, double the rate of improvement in energy efficiency, and double the share of renewable energy globally. So these are very big, audacious goals in providing energy access for everyone. In addition to this, the UN declared 2014 to 2024 the Decade for Sustainable Energy for All, underscoring the importance of the issues for sustainable development and for the elaboration of the post-2015 development agenda. Again, you mentioned this is going from the Millennium Development Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. So energy is kind of on the table for those after being missed in a big way in the MDGs. So with that, let's get started and hear a little bit more from our experts and see kind of how they're approaching the challenge of energy access. So first, I'd like to welcome Nolene Heiser. Nolene is the Undersecretary General of the United Nations. She's currently UNSG's Special Advisor for Timor-Leste, working to support peace building, state building, and sustainable development. And I'll just mention there's full bios in the program if you'd like to read those. So Nolene, if you'd like to go to the podium, or you can stay here, whichever's most comfortable for you. Great.
A very good morning, dear students, dear friends. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. Let me start by saying you are not the leaders of tomorrow. You're the leaders of today. Woo! You can be the spark that actually brings us to a system where we have the energy for the future. I think whoever thought of this title is already very inspiring. Connecting the unconnected. Actually, energy is what is the golden thread that connects the unconnected. In Sustainable Development Goal and the discussions that we in the United Nations are having on sustainable development, energy is the thread that links the economic, the social, and the environmental. It is what will bring prosperity to all. It is what will bring social equity, and it's what, if we get it right, will sustain our ecosystems. These are the three sectors in our lives that usually we actually discuss in silos. They are not connected. You need to connect them. Once and for all, development has got to be integrated if we want energy and a future that we all aspire to. Now, if we just imagine for a little while that we take a flight above the earth and we look down at night when everything is in darkness, where do you think the lights are? It will be in America, it will be in our city. And darkness in the rural areas of South Asia, in Africa, in some of the least developed countries, in our cities. And that's where we need to make the connected. We need to connect light to darkness. Why? Because in darkness, life cannot fulfill its full potential. Children cannot learn at night. Clinics and hospitals cannot function. Women and girls cannot fulfill their life potential as well. Many girls, even if they are enrolled, and we have gender equality according to the Millennium Development Goals because of school enrollment, children, and especially girls, are pulled out of school to collect the firewood. All this is totally unacceptable. You hear the figures. I mean, our figures are already extremely well known. That 1 in 5 people in the world still do not have access to modern energy services. That 1 in 4, in fact, in our rural areas do not have access to modern electricity. And also, the figures that's not really mentioned is that Asia, since you are all in Asia, also has the highest death toll resulting from indoor air pollution caused by burning biomass and solid fuels. And every year, nearly 1.3 million people just in India, China, and Southeast Asia die, and most of them are women. We cannot allow this to happen in the 21st century. And therefore, your challenge and our challenge this generation is, first of all, twofold. It is, and at one level, it is to turn on the light and power for every household and for every individual, to connect them to the energy that is critical. And at the same time, we need to turn down the global thermostat. And those are the twin challenges when we talked about the energy future and access to energy. Now, because of these challenges, as you have already heard, and we will continue to hear this, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution to create the International Year of Sustainable Energy for All, and my Secretary General launched a major campaign, which is the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. And this is why I'm so glad to address you today, because we need to make sure that the Sustainable Energy for All initiative becomes a reality, and you can indeed do that. And I think it's worth remembering so that it is in our DNA. If somebody meets you in the street and say, what do you mean by sustainable energy for all? Can you repeat it just off the top of your head? I think it has to be in our DNA. We have to say universal energy access for all. So it's really universal modern energy access for all. Double the rate of improvement of energy efficiency. Double the share of renewable in the global mix. Now, these words are easy to say, but achieving them is challenging. Yet, this is what we need to do. What is it we have to do in order to make that a reality in your lifetime, in my lifetime? We have to think about connecting the unconnected. Again, connecting governments, business, the financial sector, civil society, you, the scientific community, to transform the world's energy system. That is the transformation that you are asked to undertake. The first, how can we bring this about? Well, there are 4 different ways. One is to increase affordable renewable energy technology, especially to the rural poor community, where the extension of the national power grid could actually be rather expensive in many places. So how do we make sure that at least we can use the power of the sun, the power of the wind, nature's power to power our lives? At the same time, we need to increase efficiency in the production and use of electricity. We need to look at how do we consume and how how do we produce energy to relieve the strained power grids, allowing them to stretch further and to reach more households, communities, and businesses. In fact, cities account for 67% of all energy use, and we can all start now to use energy more efficiently. It starts with you, it starts with me. If we use energy efficiently, just in terms of our own consumption, it means saving energy for someone else. At the same time, we and you can actually think of some of the most innovative ways in which we can develop technology to increase energy efficiency. The third way is that there are so many different initiatives, and usually these are very small scale. We need to bring all the small scale initiatives up to really upscale them and to bring them to scale. Because increasingly people are saying, all right, if we use renewable energy, but it's not enough to power our industrial systems. It's not enough for this, it's not enough for that. How do we, in today's world, create a more integrated grid so that we can actually store some of this energy and to use this time frame? When I was the executive secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, one of the things that I was really happy to actually be able to achieve is to bring 54 countries in Asia to think about a regional cooperative framework and an integrated grid so that we can actually use energy on demand. We are not all in the same time frame. We're not all using energy at the same time. So maybe at night, when we are in darkness, somebody else is in light. So how do we actually share energy? How can we integrate and connect ourselves in such a way that we can share? But at the end of the day, if we want to share prosperity, we have to share energy. And the fourth way is, of course, in terms of really looking at innovation, in terms of looking at technology and markets in order to be able to shape the energy for sustainable development. And this is critical because you, as you graduate, I'm sure many of you, because of your commitment, will be exploring these new frontiers. It is challenging, but it's also extremely inspiring. And I think that you can become a game changer. People like you can become a major game changer at this particular time. So what are some of the things that I would recommend that you think about? Try to be, you can use, I like the way you talk about student energy. Actually, you can turn the student energy into a force, an intergenerational force that bring together stakeholders in an effort to discuss and to create the transformational change in world energy systems to facilitate the energy future you want. You can be a force to build intergenerational partnership between governments, private sectors, and civil society to bring action and initiatives to scale. You can encourage public-private partnerships to develop the type of innovation, the technologies, and the markets to shape energy for sustainable development. Now, providing universal access to energy would require actually an annual investment of 48 billion. That represents just 3% of total energy investment worldwide. Now, to make the connection to sustainability, we need to direct this investment primarily to renewable energy technologies and energy efficiency improvements so that our future will be ecologically sustainable. The transition is to a less resource-intensive, technology-based green economy, we can help to accelerate this process. Already Asia is in transition, and Asia has rethought itself, especially after the financial crisis, and a lot of I'm not looking at the time, Kelly, if you can alert me, because according to the time,
Yes, I know.
it's only
I've talked to her.
minutes, but I'm sure I've used much more than 5 minutes. So let me try to end by saying that we need to accelerate this process, and actually Asia is already on its road to transition, especially after the financial crisis of 2008, where there has been a lot of stimulus packages and has gone into infrastructure. As you know that we are now, in Asia alone, we also are talking about the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank. And the challenge is to make sure that our infrastructure is actually sustainable, and that they are not just talking about the hardware of infrastructure, not just about the roads and the rails, but also about our energy system. So in short, I see you as a force for change, and I see you as game changers. Thank you.
Yeah, you see. Oh, 1 second. Thanks so much for that, Nolene. I really like that. Turn on the lights in the world and turn down the thermostat. That does make sense. That's a pretty simple way to put it. So just a follow-up question. You've given us a lot to think about, in particular 4 ways. You mentioned integrating development. So I'm curious about, obviously that's integrating across sectors and integrating across institutions, but do you see energy as playing, how do you see it playing a part in all of development and in the way that people live? Do we have to approach it from a broader level?
You know, there is no development without energy. There's no life without energy. That's why we have the sun. That's why the earth goes around the sun. And the whole thing is that if we want sustainability, I mean, we have to make sure that our economic systems do not just use the energy for unsustainable growth. I mean, we need to grow in a more sustainable way. At the same time, whilst we're talking about our economic systems, we have to understand that actually, currently, even in Asia alone, 1 billion people, most of them are women in the rural areas, they do not have access to modern energy services. And therefore, if you're talking about poverty reduction, we are talking about rising Asia with rising inequality, we need to attend to that. And you can't attend to that without linking the social to the economic. And then as we can see, you can't link the social and the economic without really looking at the boundaries of our planetary system. So in a sense, your generation is a more integrated, more connected generation, because you have to think in a more holistic way. Before, we talked about trade-offs. Oh, if you want to do something, oh, there's trade-off with the economic sector. Oh, we will bring down growth. But today's discussion, there's a huge paradigm shift. And the shift is that you can grow. You can actually grow, but you can grow smart, and you can grow sustainably, and you can actually be able to create a situation where there is shared prosperity. And I think that is the challenge. How do you make all these connections work? It's not just connecting the unconnected, but connecting the unconnected in a way that works for all and leave no one behind. Actually, this is where the 2015 Sustainable Development Agenda, which the United Nations is leading, and I know that this is something that the Secretary General sees as one of his top legacy. In fact, one of his legacy is precisely to, in a sense, deal with the climate change agenda. And that's why he really believes in youth. I mean, he really sees you as a leader of today. And he keeps repeating it to every one of us. He said, talk to the youth. They are the leaders. They are the leaders. It's their future, and they need to really embrace this, because there's a generation that, the first generation that can end poverty, and the last generation that needs to attend to the climate change issues if we are to have a human future.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And for those who don't know, Student Energy is actually quite involved in the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. We run the youth session at their forum every year in New York, which just took place a couple weeks ago. So we're just getting a bit of feedback here on the mics. Can we make sure that anyone who's being used is turned off? Great. So next, we're going to hear some comments from Suleiman Al-Harbish, is currently the Director General of the OPEC Fund for International Development, OFID, and was previously with has a long history with the Saudi Arabian Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources and the Saudi Arabian government. So, Solomon, I welcome your remarks.
Can I take my water, please?
Yeah, good call. Very necessary.
Water, food, energy.
The nexus.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, dear students. Let me start by thanking the host for the warm hospitality. This, by the way, not my first encounter with the excellent and warm hospitality of Indonesia. I have been here many times in Jakarta and Bali when I was working with the oil industry, like you said, Madam Chair. And I always I spend lovely time and goes back with excellent and nice memories. Now, speaking after the Honorable Lady from the United Nations, and speaking to students, I know this suggests a different language and different style. So let me start by sharing some memories of the past before I introduce my institution and explain to you what we are doing. I would like, first of all, to thank those who proposed the topic title, Connecting the Unconnected, because this is actually what we are doing. So I would like to thank them and welcome to our agenda. Before I start introducing my institution, I would like just to share with you, students, you are the leader of today and tomorrow, some of my memories when I was a student like you in the early 60s. And one of my professors gave me distributed a document, which is probably the most important document in the world. This is the United Nations Charter. I brought it with me, knowing that I'm going to speak after the United Nations representative. And I remember when he gave us this document, he said at that time that he wasn't worried about the world facing another third World War, but he is worried that there will be partial and regional small wars caused by inequality, caused by poverty, whether it is energy or food or water or whatever. And I think this is what's happening these days. But this professor, by the way, became later on the 6th Secretary General of the United Nations. I think some of you heard the name Boutros Ghali, and he is the one who lost his job because he remained faithful to his mandate. I just would like to give this note for you in case you would like to follow it. Now, my institution is OPEC Fund for International Development. This institution was established in 1976. Next year, we're going to celebrate our 40th anniversary. And this institution is one of 10 institutions created by our member countries to help developing countries across the globe, regardless of region or religion or race or whatever. And OPEC Fund for International Development is working with more than 130 developing countries across the globe. We are helping them through 4 instruments: public sector soft loans, trade finance, private sectors, and grants. And like I said, we are working in different sectors. One of them, of course, is energy. Now, our motto, if you look at our website, you'll find our motto is uniting against poverty. Poverty in general, poverty in food, in education, energy, whatever, because poverty has many aspects. One of them is, of course, the one we are dealing with today. And back to this document, if you look at chapter 9, and that's what my professor at that time is saying, that from now on, look at chapter 9, which is neglected. Chapter 9 of the United Nations chapter is dealing with unemployment, standard of living, poverty, inequality, and human rights. And this is very important because energy poverty or poverty in general is deeply connected to human rights and lack of stability, security, and most of the things that's happening this time in our world. Poverty is defined by, by the United Nations or the World Bank, and those below the red line, which is described as those who earning less than $1.25. But sometimes I would like to illustrate poverty by showing some picture. Can we have? What shall I do with this? Technology.
Is this the right slide?
That one. I would like to show.
That one?
Huh?
Do you see the slide?
I'm pushing all buttons.
Do you, there, it's just, do you see, you can see it right down there. You can see the slide there.
I thought I should see it. No, but it's not there. Huh? I am starting now zero, so I have another 5 minutes.
No, it's just, do you see the
Well,
slide? Here, I'll show you.
can you help me with this? I should
Sorry.
have this here.
See you can see your slides right there,
Okay.
and there on the side.
I'm going with.
Is that the one you want?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I thought it should be here.
See, it's on the sides.
Ah, there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, please.
There you go.
So which I push now? Which one?
It's just
This-
that
this-
was the forward or back.
This?
Yeah.
Ah.
So you got.
So the next one is here, right?
Yeah, perfect.
So I hope you're not counting the time now.
No.
Okay.
Take all the time
So
you need.
give me this for 2 minutes. Okay, this is one way of showing that because I'm sure this will remain your memory better
Just now
than
I
telling
kept
you the
saying
1 point,
five,
the
so I wasn't sure
$1.25,
what it
etc.
meant.
I think there is another one.
Yeah. We have lots of
Yeah.
time.
And look at this is when we talk about energy poverty, we have all this one. I don't know how many BTU this lady is carrying, but this is when you talk about the people, 2.5 billion people living on biomass. This is one of them. Now, the summit, the second summit of our member countries defined poverty in a very few words, saying that poverty, and this is, I think, a good example, poverty is the most serious environmental problem facing the world. And this is a reality, actually. Now, let me share with you what our member country is doing. In the year 2000, the second summit of OPEC defined poverty, like I said, and in that year coincided with the publication or the agreement of the world on the so-called Millennium Development Goals, MDGs. And MDGs, I hope I can have it right now.
Yes.
Okay. Now, these are the MDGs. Look at the Millennium Development Goals, and if you go through them one by one, you will find that they are dealing with all aspects of poverty except one, which is the most important one, which is energy. There is no goal here for energy, for eradication of energy poverty, for elimination or alleviation of energy poverty. They're talking about health, talking about education, talking about this, which my institution is doing actually since 1976 and even before. Now, so in November 2007, now, because I'm now comparing what we are doing, comparing to the United Nations as initiating, and we are working together. But in 2007, we had our member countries convene their third summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and they came up with a decision which is summarized as eradication of energy poverty. Eradication of energy poverty, referring to the 1.3 billion people deprived from electricity across the globe. Now, energy poverty defined by the 1.3 billion people deprived from electricity is known in the literature. If you are reading the literature from the IEA, International Energy Agency, or the Energy Information Agency, United States, or OPEC, you will find energy poverty defined as such. But eradication of energy poverty was not actually touched on before our member countries in November 2007 start discussing it and bringing it as posing it as the biggest problem facing the world, along with the 8 Millennium Development Goals. So eradication of energy poverty is by practically we are adding the 9th goal of the Millennium Development Goals, the 9 goals. So they are not really 8. They are 8 in the United Nations and the letter, but they are 9 actually. We added the 9th goal, and we started trying to look for ways and means of achieving that goal. We in OFID, OPEC Fund for International Development, took that goal or that decision as part of our mandate, and we start looking for ways and means to eradicate energy poverty. And the first event came in the second week of June 2008 in Abuja, the capital city of Nigeria. We organized the first workshop on this subject, very important subject. We brought speakers from different stakeholders, from the World Bank, from UNDP, from OPEC, from the oil companies, from the energy service companies like Schlumberger and ExxonMobil, Chevron, etc. And we studied this problem in Sub-Sahara, and we came to the conclusion, actually, that the market has failed to solve this problem, so there has to be a global solution for eradicating energy poverty. And we took that results, which is you can find in our websites. We published a volume about this, the result of our work, and submitted to our Ministerial Council. Now, I know I don't have much time, but I have to run now. I have to go quickly. Now, sorry. In the same year, 2008, there was another conference for the same purpose, and our member countries received another instruction from the summit from the chairman of the OPEC third summit to allocate $1 billion for this purpose to eradicate energy poverty. Actually, in the year 2012, our member countries agreed on this $1 billion, and they instructed me to go to Rio Plus 20 to announce that $1 billion, which became as part of our commitment. I hope I have time to show it to you here. We have, again, in our, this is a declaration which I announced at Rio Plus 20 in a meeting attended by Mr. Ban Ki-moon. It says here, very important, that our member countries are dedicating $1 billion for energy poverty eradication, and this $1 billion became revolving. In other words, it's always with us, and we are spending even more than that. And it says also in Article 4, if you happen to read it, Article 4 is saying that we are technology neutral. This is very important. Developing countries, poor countries, they need all sources of energy at this point of time. Anything superior to animal waste and wood is needed by them. So please, let's not confine their needs by renewables. They need renewable, yes, and we are giving them renewable. In the last 3 years, I signed more than 35 energy agreements. At least 15 of them are renewables. We are doing renewables in many parts of the world, and we are doing it even the mini-grid and the off-grid. So we are trying to connect the unconnected in areas where there is no transmission. This is very important. We did it in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Malawi, and many other countries, and we can give example. I know that probably the time does not allow me to go through all these, but we are now actually working together with the United Nations. I am a member of the advisory board of Mr. Ban Ki-moon on Energy for All, and which he started in the year 2012, and we are working with that. So when we say that energy is the golden thread that connects the 3 pillars of sustainable development. What are the 3 pillars? They are social, economic, and environmental. And please, we have to maintain the balance between the three pillars. We should not really concentrate on environment only. Environment is taken care by COP21 is going to take place in Paris. We are all going there, and we are all for a clean environment. But developing countries and poor countries, they need all sources of energy, and they need also social and economic development, and we should really help them on that one. The last thing I would like to did I finish mine?
Go ahead.
Okay. We are actually working in all aspects, in all areas. The last thing we did 2 weeks ago in Norway, we are having a meeting trying to bring together the oil industry to work with us on something we call the social or the corporate social responsibilities. In other words, we're trying to convince the oil companies, and they are really agreeing and working with us, that to do this kind of helping countries in which they are working by, for example, gas flaring and other projects which we are trying to do together. And it is working. This is again adopted by the World Bank recently and the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, energy poverty is one aspect of poverty facing the world. It is energy, it is food, poverty, health, education, etc. So, what is this? Okay, these are the sustainable development. I'm sorry, I pushed that. Technology. I think I need to take a crash course in technology. Okay. Now, I would like to conclude by asking you please to read this statement by a man whom we all respect and admire, Nelson Mandela. Look what he said. Nelson Mandela said that, what he said, that like slavery and apartheid, poverty is a man-made. It's not really something natural. It's something that we can change. Yes, if we work together, if we put our resources, human resources, financial resources, if we are now determined to go from MDG, which did not have energy poverty, to the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, which were number 7. Number 7 is on energy, and this is really, I don't want to say that we are taking pride in adding this one, but this is a reality. Now we have energy poverty dealt with in number 7, and is going to be even occupying a critical and strategic role among 17 goals with 169 targets. These are the SDG, and these are the Sustainable Development Goals, which you, the leader of today and tomorrow, should really read, understand, and try to implement through the partnership. The last goal of partnership, you have to urge your politicians, your people, and work together to implement them. So one day we have, a world with less poverty. I'm not saying with zero poverty, with less poverty, and we're trying to improve it. This is your responsibilities, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Solomon. I have to say, I'm very impressed with your ability to hold on to mementos from different conferences years ago. That's very good. Yeah. So just one quick follow-up question. So you mentioned the need for being technology agnostic and the need for the role that fossil fuels will play in alleviating energy poverty. So I'm curious how you see that discrepancy between our current climate change issue and the need to have fossil fuels play a part in that. How do you think we can address both simultaneously?
Let me try to cover the question. In the conference and the workshop we organized in Abuja, the main purpose was actually to explore the issue, to understand it, to see what is it really exactly. And of course, from day one, we realized that to solve a problem, Sub-Sahara, for example, taking Sub-Sahara as the worst example, we found it almost impossible to deal with this problem in the short term. And that was clearly stated. You need, you need huge investment. You need political will. You need, the environment, legal, and framework, and all these things which are lacking. So we started talking about mini-grid and off-grid and technology. When I say technology neutrality, because this is really some things we face from time to time when I didn't say it, everything, to explain it, but thank you for giving me the chance. Sometimes when you go to these kind of gatherings, people talking about clean energy, modern energy. Okay, fine, we are for that. We say modern energy because we include other sources of energy. When you say clean energy, some people insist on having only solar and wind. And they even give the wrong signal to the market, because solar and wind are really solving the problem on the power generation sector only. They are not replacing other sources of fossil fuel in all aspects. So let us first. Some people, because our name is OPEC Fund, they think that we are defending fossil fuel. No, this is not true. We are not defending a market share. We are actually trying to clarify the facts. The facts is that these poor countries need any sources of energy which is superior to animal waste and to wood. We have problems of. I have a lot of examples to explain, the impact of what we are doing in Africa. For example, we financed a project in Gambia, just lighting the road from the airport to the city, to the capital city, a project which cost us less than $5 million. And I received a delegation in my office in Vienna. They came to thank me not only for the project, but for the fact that this project cut the crime rate in the evening by 50%. This is something people don't know when they talk about the needs of these poor countries. Sorry to say it, but if you want really to solve the problem of poor, you have to come down to their problem. You have to understand it. You have to live it. That's the thing that we do when we do our bilateral visit, when we go to different parts of the countries we are dealing with. We go to the communities, we listen to them, we understand their problem. The off-grid people, what is it? People are scattered here and there. I was in Magua, in Nicaragua, and I visited places, you cannot really have them through transmission. You have to give them something. So we gave these countries like the solar fuel lanterns for students to. By the way, when I was a little boy, I didn't have electricity in my village. So I was actually studying using this kerosene fuels. My mother used to bring them. So I know really what it means to have energy poverty. These are the things that we are thinking. So don't complicate things, Give them what you can offer now, and then look for a better solution. That's the point we are trying to make. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Great. So Sri really gave her comments last night. So I'm not going to make you get back up on the podium, but unless you'd like to. But I do have a few clarifying questions for you, if that's all right.
I can summarize.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So
The conversation is already quite a lot. So maybe to summarize, so that all the students here can ask questions, which is maybe important. Let me do it. I can do it from here, actually.
yeah, sure.
Can I do it here? I think that's
Yeah.
easier. Okay. Last night I have like 3 points to make, and I think it's been repeated. Okay, this is not really a good mic.
I think it's good now. There are just too many people's on.
Oh,
Good.
okay. I thought that this is like a Michael Jackson. There are 3 points that I made last night. First, I think which is repeated by the other 2 previous speakers, it is on the energy poverty. That 1.1 billion people in the world does not have the access of the energy, and it's so obvious that if you are going to eradicate poverty, if you are going to develop your economy, if you are going to make a social progress, energy is important. So I don't have to repeat that one. The second one is important, which is if you are going to connect this 1.1 billion plus many other people, the middle income country, the middle income group, they are now aspiring for consuming more. How you are going to reconcile between the goal to provide accessibility and improvement on the accessibility with the concern on the climate change, that is to maintaining the 2-degree turn down the heat we just mentioned. If we are going to improve more and more the access of the energy, does it mean that we are going to allow the world to become even more warmer, that then create a lot of implication, whether this is on the pollution side or in this case in terms of the destruction, which mostly is going to be suffered by the poor people and poor countries. So this is going to be like to reconcile between creating an accessibility and improvement of the access of this energy with our concern about the global climate environment. The answer is two. Last night is that you should improve more the accessibility by creating more renewable. And the second one is the efficiency. Because last night I mentioned if you improve the efficiency, actually you can reduce by 30% the consumption of the energy. Meaning that if you have to create more accessibility of 1.1 billion people, the energy, you don't have to pollute the same thing, just like what's already being done in the past. Now, the third question, which is I think important, and this is especially for you, telling that you are the present leader, you're going to be the future leader, whatever, but you are the important player. There are three challenges in actually reconciling these two goals. That is the policy challenge, political policy challenge. Last night I mentioned that if the country adopting a distorted policy, whether this is on a subsidy, that then reflecting in the price, then it is impossible for you to create an environment for this renewable energy to be created, or even in this case on efficiency. Then you are going to go on the same business as usual of polluting or creating the energy with the one only goal, but you don't care about the other goal of creating more sustainability and avoiding the catastrophic impact of the climate change. The second one is, of course, that will require a lot of money. So the finance and the economic side is very important. I think this is not about money, 48 billion, or even in this case now, the new estimation, if you are going to create more an environment which is friendly and maintain the 2-degree centigrade, you require 1 trillion. It is about how you are going to, it is not about the money is there, but how you connect this money with the need to invest there. And that's why sometimes, because many of you is a student in energy, mining, and all this, but you really need to connect with the financing side in which you are connecting the source of funding with the need of the investment. That will require the capital market. You need to have the long-term investment, which I think require this kind of policy and regulatory reform. I'm also putting this on the economic side, is on the institutional side. Because many of you, maybe after graduated, you are going to join company. Maybe many of you is going to work for state-owned enterprises, which is regulating or managing or running power company. My experience, this power company is part of the problem rather than the solution. It is because of the governance, it is because of their efficiency. So if you become the leader, even improve the governance of the state-owned enterprise or company, it's going to contribute a lot. The last one is, of course, the innovation. And this is the area which I think the most exciting for many of you is working. I mentioned last night about the Tesla, the battery. But even on the renewable, you are going to have quite a lot of innovation that will make the cost of renewable is becoming less and less, and that's becoming more and more affordable. And from policy point of view, it's becoming even more comparable, or even in this case, if you put it within the perspective of long term, they're becoming much more make sense, not only financially, economically, but also from the environmental concern to shift to the renewable. So the innovation and technology is becoming part of the solution to make this distortion to be adjusted. I think I want to finish by repeating that, because I'm sure that many of you will graduate soon. Whether you are going to work as a policymaker, please make sure that when you are going to participate in the policy-making process, you are thinking about what is really needed in order to create a good policy environment for this, not only accessibility, but also sustainability. If you are going to work in a company, please make sure that you are going to contribute, whether in innovation or you are going to be creating a good governance. And if you are working in an NGO or any other, I think you are going to create a more, what we call it, an environment in which this agenda of sustainable development goal can only be achieved if all parties working together. Whether you are a policymaker, whether you are in a business, whether you are an NGO, whether you are a consumer, we are all can make this happen. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Again, a reiteration of the importance of being multidisciplinary and working across sectors, and I think that's something that we've really tried to build in the conference. As you know, all of you are from all different disciplines and come at this from a different angle, but working together is where I guess the solutions truly lie. Sri, one follow-up question. What do you see your role, or the World Bank's role in solving this issue?
Well, last night I mentioned that on the last part of my speech. The World Bank committed and see this sustainable development goal as one part of the goals of eradicating poverty. I don't have to repeat on that. No. So how we are going to reflecting in our program? First, the World Bank work with many countries. The World Bank as a group, we have the public policy area, which is I think on the World Bank side. The other ones on the private sector, we have the IFC, and we also have a MIGA, which is putting a guarantee. If you look at this three part of the World Bank group, on the public side, we work in many countries, as I mentioned earlier, not only investing in the cleaner energy, renewable energy, we also sometimes work with the government. I know very well that we are working in Kenya, we are working in Ethiopia, we are working in Senegal, we are working in India. That is really putting first from the policy point of view, if they are actually borrowing from us in improving their policy, or strengthening the institution, or even directly investing, like what we are doing. Okay, this is interesting.
These mics are
I
a
put
little
it like
loose
this.
for us.
We are investing, for example, in Pakistan and Afghanistan. There's 100 kilometer transmission from Tajikistan for the renewable hydro. So we are investing in a company, in a countries on mostly the renewable one. The second one on the private sector, we also working with many of the private sector, which is actually dealing and improving on the energy side. And then the MIGA is creating more and more on a guarantee, because sometimes, for example, we have the Banda gas that is between Mauritania, Senegal, and Mali, connecting for the gas. Not only in terms of the financial risk, which is very big, then also have other political risk, policy risk. And investor cannot come, or they are not willing to come unless the risk is going to be mitigated and handled. And that's why the World Bank is using our instrument from all fronts in order for us to be able to support countries' own goal in order to improve the accessibility as well as improving the efficiency of the energy.
Great, thank you. Great, all right, so we have our final speaker's comments. It's up there. From Kava Madani. So Dr. Kava Madani is an environmental management lecturer at the Center for Environmental Policy of the Imperial College London. Prior to this, he was an assistant professor at Civil, Environmental, and Construction Engineering and an Alexander Fellow at the University of Central Florida, where he founded and directed the Hydro Environmental Energy Systems Analysis Research Group. So Kava is going to give us some closing thoughts and a closing presentation, and then we're going to go into our debate, or discussion, I should say. Thanks, Kava.
Thank you. Thank you. Nope.
I think just go.
Yes, not on yet.
Just go ahead and see if it'll work.
Let's talk. Naidu, low, on, off.
No, maybe just go ahead and see. It might just take a minute to get it on. No?
Not on.
Let's just grab you a wireless. I think we might be switching to wireless from here on out. Guys.
On.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it on? Is this on? Here we go. This one's on. Try that guy.
All right.
Can I bring my eyeglasses, please?
Yes, yes, for sure.
Hello.
Thank you.
Need two hands. Thank you for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's always great to talk to students, especially when you're trying to be provocative and be a game changer. Talking to the younger ones is always better. Have a higher infiltration capacity. So I'm going to talk, about a topic about a system of systems perspective and why we should adopt it if we really want to achieve sustainable development, and why we should be different. It'll be great if I can get my slides here. Essentially, I want to start with the common narrative. When we talk about energy security, energy poverty, energy access, and so on, we always start with the sad side of the story, which is absolutely sad. But the numbers that you're familiar with, I'm not going to go over these numbers again and again. You heard them this morning, you have heard them before. But this is how we build a story, and we try to get attention, and we justify the actions we want to take. So we know that in the current situation is quite bad. In many places in the world, we don't have access to energy. People are suffering, and so on. And energy is the engine of growth. Energy and lack of access to energy causes a lot of problems. These are not new information. And if you look at where these places are, where we are suffering from energy, lack of energy access, again, those places are not unfamiliar. We have heard their names and so on. And these are the places which are quite rich in some other resources. So although we don't have energy, but when it comes to other resources, they're quite rich. So that's why I want to talk about other aspects of energy planning, and what we need a paradigm shift in order to be successful and achieve what we really want, right? So talking about these numbers, and this is an energy conference that you're all interested in energy, but we all keep talking about energy security. It's top on the politicians' agenda. Policymakers keep talking about it. It's different from water, from food, and so on. We have no place in the world which doesn't have water. We have no place in the world which we can't produce food. But in the past, we have places that we didn't have energy at. Energy has always been big, and as politicians, as those making decisions, they've always been frustrated with the lack of access to energy, and that's why it's high in our agenda. But what I'm going to talk about is something else. Yeah, we talk about energy, and we talk about the economic relationship. The relationship between the economic sector and energy, and that's how we have been making decisions. And climate change was added to the game. We realized that some of our policies were wrong, and they have caused global warming. Let's solve it. How do we do that? Again, the solutions are in the energy sector. Let's try to solve them through switching to alternative fuels, which not necessarily might be as green as we think, because some of them might have effects on the other sectors which are important. But when you talk about it, it's not sectors which are thirstier than most energies. Their water footprint is 70 to 400 times bigger than the fossil fuels. How about their land use effects? How about their effects on the ecosystem? How about the relation between the energy sector and the nexus between energy, climate, food, water, social system, ecosystem, and so on? And when you talk about all these things and you realize that these are interconnected, how can you make a decision only about one sector? How can you achieve energy security and make sure that you can be successful? What if you have energy security and you don't have access to other resources? How can you make this integrated development? And why do we still promote these things? So the paradigm shift is really required. We have to have a different perspective. We have to think about the whole system, or a system of systems altogether, because if we grow too much in one sector, we have effects on the other sector. Example, Middle East. Middle East has been rich in energy, but they have been poor in food and agriculture. So they have been promoting food production at home, being self-sufficient. What are the effects? Look at the water crisis in the Middle East at the moment. We will have the same situation later on. But it's not about like only energy, like energy security and energy access. What I'm worried about is the way we're trying to promote energy development in the developing world. We always want to keep this donor-recipient relationship. So the rich countries should be helping the poor country, and should be helping the poor to have access to energy because of humanitarian purposes. But what I'm trying to say here today is that it's not that. We have no choice but investing in the developing world, because that's where the abatement cost is lower. We have no choice because we are dealing with a lot of global crises and a lot of problems, a lot of global challenges that requires global cooperation. And what we need to do is to look for opportunity for cooperation. So this changes the current positions of the developing world and the developed world. We have to think about human security rather than energy security. As I said, if you have energy and have no water, you're not secure. If you have energy and have no food, you're not secure. So you have to think about all these things together. And that's when you replace energy security with human security. That's when you replace sustainable energy with sustainable development. Sustainable development is about the coupled human natural system. It's about the whole society, not about one subsystem, which being the energy system that we are so worried about. So when we think this differently, when we think about, we adopt a systems perspective, or a system of systems perspective, then we think about the whole nexus. Now, water, food, energy nexus is becoming going on our research agenda. We're talking about it, but still, when it comes to decision making, we're not thinking about it as much as we need to. So that's why we need to think different. And then that requires a major paradigm shift in the way we think. We make decision and we analyze. And why that would be changing the whole game. I mean, we have, as I said, we have been trying to become self-sufficient in energy production. We want to be self-sufficient in food production. We want to be self-sufficient in water. And many countries don't like the idea of importing virtual water, importing energy, importing food, and so on. But the global challenges are proving to us that we cannot be self-sufficient in all of these. And if you want to be self-sufficient in one, you will create problems for the other one. So you're dealing with a lot of trade-offs, and that they're not easy to understand and analyze. You can, and once you change your perspective, once you think about, get rid of the dominant relationship, the way we see the game, it's water resources in many places. Many of these areas have a lot of water resources, but they don't have the right infrastructure. They're really wealthy. If you want production, they can supply us with. So that we really rely on them. And as I said, cost of abatement in the developed world is so high that we have no choice but investing in renewable energies in areas that have a high potential, let's say for solar production, solar energy production, and so on. So we have to change our perspective. And then we have to look for issue linkage, link energy with water, link energy with food, link energy with other aspects of the system. That's how willing to invest some money in the developed world where I can buy food from later on, because the cost of food production is much lower probably in Africa than California, which is suffering from a big drought and so on. So really what to do is we need to adopt a system of systems perspective. We have to think big. We have to, it's hard to understand the complexities, but that doesn't justify what we're doing right now, because we don't get the complexities. We narrow down things. We try to manage all these sectors separately. That's wrong. So try to find the strength of the developing world. What can what this find these developing world in a poor position, and that's not right. That's something that we have to really change, and I think there are a lot of opportunities there. So at the end of the day, remember, human security is more important than energy security, water security, food security, and so on. You have human security when everything is secured together, but you cannot plan for them separately.
Great, thanks, Kava. One follow-up question for you here. So this idea that cost being really interesting. I'm curious how that plays out kind of political or messaging point of view, when often countries want to be shown to be doing things in their own country regardless of the kind of overall global costs of it. Have you thought how that we might be able to change that messaging?
So the situation we have right now is that, okay, we're facing a global challenge, and then we're still doing calculations based on geographic boundaries, and which are wrong, right? So we're talking about let's say emissions of China, emissions of India, and so on. Look at the service they're providing to the rest of the world. Who's using the service? Are we taking into account the virtual footprint, water exchanges, energy exchanges, service exchanges, and so on? The problem we have at the moment is that we're trying to tackle challenge through a reductionist thinking paradigm, in which we try to separate things local and then tell you're guilty or you're guilty, and that's how we should play the game. So unless we come together and understand that this is a global challenge and we are trading a lot of things, we cannot solve the problem. So yes, if we just say that India should be responsible for the emissions on its own, and then any reduction in India, any reduction of carbon emissions in India should be done by the Indian government, and India is the only one getting credit for what's out there, then the United States would not have any interest in investing in emission abatement in India, because the United States will be blamed for the emissions.
Sorry, I don't know how to get it.
So it's not only me.
Okay, so the first question is, why should countries care about investing in renewable energy? Why should developing countries care about investing in renewable energy development when they have greater problems such as hunger, poverty, and lack of access to clean water? So I think Kava kind of talked about how this is a security issue, but why prioritize renewable energy investment?
Do you follow what she's saying?
Yes, okay.
Problem
You cannot hear it?
Oh, you can hear?
No, I hear it now. Now I hear it.
Okay, sorry. So why should they prioritize renewable energy development when there are these other kind of pressing poverty problems? Sri, would you like to take that one?
Well, as I said, I think this is a very good question. First, if we see the priority as if hunger, poverty, and lack of access to the clean water with energy as all different goals, then you see this is more like a trade-off. But in fact, in this case, if you're talking about the energy and access and energies, can actually address the issue of poverty and hunger. So I don't see it as really a trade-off between all the two goals. The second one, why you have to invest in a renewable, which is much more expensive? I guess this is really also related to why the developing country who always face the constraint of financing side, they have to spend more money investing in an energy sources which is much, much more expensive. It's of course, if you're talking about that the world is one village, you cannot like say that what you are doing here is not going to affect it there. And that's why what the previous speaker and all, this issue about the energy, pollution, and climate change has become one, we call it public bet, or public goods become public bets. And that's why, for many developing countries, the access to financing is very important. Institutions like the World Bank is trying to do and provide those kind of access, especially for developing countries who don't have the access of financing. Second one is, of course, the access to the technology, which is, I think this is the role of both the private sector and many of the other players who can provide more technology. The third question is, of course, all related to the policy, because as I said earlier and also yesterday, it is the poor who's actually suffering more from climate change as well as the lack of energy. So if you are addressing the issue of the energy as well as concern about the climate change, actually you're also addressing the real concern of the poor people.
Great, thank you. Solomon, would you like to also answer this? Why prioritize investment in energy over other kind of very pressing poverty issues? Yeah.
Well, okay. No, actually, we are not really saying. If you take the activities of my institution from day one till now, you see, we used to have like more than 30% of our activities devoted for transport, and this is because we are a demand-driven institution. We receive project demand from our beneficiaries, from our partners. Now we are giving more weight to energy because energy was left behind, was not part of the MDG. That's the point. We tried from November 2007 to bring energy poverty to the fore, to give it the same priority like infrastructure, road, hospital, etc. So this is the point. We are not really saying that, okay, take energy now, leave everything behind. No, as a matter of fact, this year, in July 21st, we're going to submit to our Ministerial Council our corporate plan, which is based on what we call the nexus, which is food, energy, water. So this is going to be taken more than 70% of our activities. That's going to be from now on. This is a balanced approach to the problem. So energy should be given its proper role. If we take the quote of the statement of Mr. Ban Ki-moon that energy is the golden thread that connects all them, it also should have been taken as the golden thread from day one, from 2000, when we have the MDG. Okay, now for the SDG, it's going to be, energy is going to be the golden thread. You cannot do any, if you take the 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goal, the new goal. By the way, these goals going to be addressed, approved by the United Nations General Assembly in the last week of September this year. They will be the agenda of the whole world, Sustainable Development Goal. 17 goals with 159 targets. This is very important for the leader of today and tomorrow to really read and understand. So energy is connecting all these two. Nobody's saying that should be left behind. I think I still have more to add, but I think the time is not really.
I'll keep it short. I think it is wrong if you say that energy should be the first thing that we need to care about. The focus is wrong. I think the focus should be on empowerment. And once the focus is on empowerment, then under that umbrella, you might have energy. In some places, you might need to invest in energy. In some other places, you need to focus and help with water. But at the end of the day, if you're focusing on empowerment, then you realize that it's not one or the other. It's all of them together. And it's all about the balance rather than investment in one sector and not caring about the other one.
Yes, context matters a great deal in these big global issues. Noli, I'm going to direct the next question to you. How can we bridge the gap for energy access between the developed world and the developing world? Or how can we get these two worlds working together on this problem?
You know,
Go ahead.
it doesn't seem, okay, it's working. You know, let me just give you a little bit of a historical perspective because history is really important. The Millennium Development Goals was actually, if you would like, it could be seen as like a minimum standard of development for human well-being that brought together where the donor money should be going. And it is not, in fact, from the time of Bruce Scully, there were endless UN conferences from Rio, from the human rights and so on. And the agenda happened to be extremely huge. In fact, the UN Charter from 70 years ago talked about the fact that we have to focus on freedom from want and freedom from fear and freedom from all forms of discrimination if we are to have a human future, right? So, but then that got broken down into where should we be putting our energies and how do we bring everyone together. So we had the 8 goals as the minimum standard. It was not the complete standard. Now we have the Sustainable Development Goals. And what is so unique about this is that it's no longer it divides the world to the developing world and the developed world. It is a universal agenda. I don't think we can actually deal with sustainable development if we keep dividing up our worlds. So we have one planet, we have one home, and therefore the whole thing is to have a more holistic development or a holistic understanding. Because even if we just look at air pollution don't need a passport to cross border. If you pollute, it's just going to travel, and therefore we can't keep on blaming. I mean, I don't think the blame game is going to work. So it's no longer the whole issue that the Sustainable Development Goals actually ask for is universality, just one, and the other one is global partnership for this deep transformation. This could be a huge transformation, and therefore it talks about a global partnership of mutual accountability, right? And then it also talks about a partnership that governments cannot do everything alone. Neither can civil society and citizens. It is actually all of us harnessing assets of all to move in the same direction, supported by our core values of where we need to go as a human society. So global partnership for transformation. I think the other one is integrated, that this agenda cannot be piecemeal. It has to be integrated. You have to integrate what's happening in your economic sector. You have to integrate what's happening in your social sector, in your ecological sector. And obviously, I mean, it is about food, water, energy, finance. It's about everything. But it's also about human well-being, because there are still the unmet needs. I mean, even if you talk of Asia, we were supposed to have half the world's absolute poverty, but there's the other half that's being left behind. And there's about 750 million people that are still living in absolute poverty, and this has got to be addressed. You still have a world where just Asia alone, I know the Asian numbers off the top of my head, like 542 million people go to bed hungry every night. And that's not acceptable in the 21st century. 3 million children die every year in Asia before they reach the age of 5. So these are all things that we need to actually address as we take the road to sustainability. Because it's not just environmental sustainability, it's also about human sustainability.
Great. So Sri had to leave us. She's got another meeting. But we're going to continue the conversation.
Can I add just one more thing?
Absolutely, Nolene.
Sorry. The one point that I want to add is that different from the Millennium Development Goals, I think the Sustainable Development Agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals, the way they unity for all. But what is special is that it now has what they call the means of implementation. And the means of implementation, of course, is about the financing, is about the type of technologies that we have to invest in. It's about the capacity building. It's about the governance system. So again, it forces us actually think totally out of the box, but we have to think in terms of implementation. And once we have a universal agenda, the implementation has to take place where people live. That is very much at the local level, at the community level, at the national level. But at the same time, it's also highly dependent on the stage of development of each places.
Great, thank you so much. I had never thought about the difference between the MDGs and the SDGs being universality, and that's a really, really great piece. Did you want to add something, Salman, or can I go to the next one?
On the MDG, SDG, yeah. Well, actually, I was planning actually to have this one of my concluding remarks, but thank you for giving me the chance to say it. You know, I'm really optimistic about this huge international agenda. Moving from MDG to SDG is very important, and for us to understand and try to help to the implementation. Now, the difference between MDG and SDG, and why I'm optimistic, that is the fact that the MDG were issued in the year 2000. And it took us 2 years until 2002 to think of a budget for them. That's a Monterey. That's what they call Monterey Consensus. That's when they try to find solutions from a financial point of view. Because before that, it was just a political statement. You have 8 goals, just as if it is just a stopgap solution with no implementable agenda. Now, the SDG, although they are 17 and they are taking, of course, energy as the key issue, but the SDG is going to be endorsed by the United Nations General Assembly in September this year. Now, before that, between 13 and 16 July in Addis Ababa, there will be a huge conference on financing development. In other words, they are trying to find the financial scheme for this SDG before even they are endorsed by the United Nations. This is something I think is unprecedented, and this is something that indicates the seriousness of the world to find a solution, because the problem of poverty, the problem of inequality, the problem of the connection between poverty and human rights and international stability and security is becoming the most pressing political and social and economic problem. Of course, environmental. This is very important, and that's why I would like the leaders of today and tomorrow. I like this statement. I'd like the leaders of today and tomorrow to think deeply about this one. Please, this is very important for you and your countries and your future. I think reading the SDGs and targets and how they're going to be implemented, and the role of energy, and the role of human rights, and the empowerment of women, and gender equality, are all these things combined together. And then you see how this is going to be implemented. Financial aspect of this and financial vehicle to implement these SDGs are very important. So that's why I'm very optimistic. Oh, let's look at my glass is half full, by the way. Thank you.
Great. So the next question I'm going to address to the entire panel, starting with Ava. What would you say, and I know there's many, but choosing one, what is the biggest single largest challenge or obstacle we have in addressing energy access?
I think it's highly related to the previous question, why the developed world does not have incentive to invest in the change in the developing world. We keep talking about the ideals, all the good things are, international organizations have been talking about a lot of good things. We get together in different settings, in different summits and so on, and talk about how we should solve the global, address the global challenges, climate change, food security, water security, and so on. But the issue we have is the reality is different from the ideals, right? At the end of the day, someone should write the check. Someone should finance the changes. And unless we we solve this problem unless we create good incentives and design a good mechanism for promoting the change. Things are not going to change because we don't know when the end of the world is coming. We know there's climate change, but we don't know when the end of the world is coming. And unless we don't know, I mean, we are talking about all these projections about the future, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We have all these ongoing problems in the moment that prevent us from making decisions about the future, right? If I'm dealing with a drought in my region, I have to address that. And the taxpayers and the citizens would not necessarily appreciate the long-term environmental or these sort of changes which have some cost to them. So if I'm a taxpayer in the UK or in the United States, I might not appreciate my government going and investing in some other parts of the world where we are suffering from problems because I don't know why they're doing it, because I don't see the end of the world is coming. So I think this is a major issue. We have to find ways of compensating the investment. Of course, the long-term goods are going to be there, but how about the short term? And in the short term, these are the trade opportunities that I think we need to figure out and find out and identify. Unless we create the right incentives, we just keep these things on the political agenda, on our agenda, but nothing's going to happen really.
Great, thank you. Suleiman, the biggest challenge, the single biggest challenge in addressing energy access, if you had to pick one.
Okay, well, there are many challenges. Let's be fair with these developing countries. When I grew up during the 60s, and I remember, during the 60s, you have many countries in Africa and Asia liberated, especially in Africa, we have, I can count them. But before that, they were under the control of the superpower, actually. They are emerging. So there is a political and even ethical responsibilities on the developers, on the superpower to help them and pull them out of this vicious circle. Now, I agree that these countries, in order to solve the problem, whether it is energy or poverty in general, they have to create the legal environment and the investment environment. They have to clean their bureaucracy. They have to know the difference between democracy and bureaucracy. Sometimes they are overlapping. Yeah, sometimes we have a project which is not approved, not ratified by a country for 2 or 3 years because, it's going from one bureaucracy to another, and they said, and when we check it with our partner, they say this is democracy. I told them no, this is bureaucracy. There's a lot of things that need to be done by developing countries, but you see the huge responsibilities comes on the developing countries. The ODA, the Official Development Assistance, need to be really enhanced. The United Nations target of the 0.7% of the GDP is not reached by many countries. Now we celebrated the fact that United Kingdom reached this goal last year. By the way, the owners of our institution reached this even exceeded many times, before. So the main challenge is to start. Okay, energy poverty, for example, it has, if you want the full to energize, for example, Africa, and this has to come from public sector, private sector, and private sector, you have to give them the environment that they need to work within, assigned. And then you have the mini grid and the off grid. This can be done by many. One of them is the microfinance, and the microfinance, this is the thing that we encourage, and this is the thing we can do, or we are doing with other institutions. So there is a way. There is many ways to solve these problems if you have the political will, if you have the real partnership, which I think going to be the target 17 in the SDG.
So essentially, the landscape being appropriate with that type of investment or development. Nalin, the single biggest challenge.
I think the biggest challenge at the end of the day is entrenched interest and entrenched systems. Because if you lock yourself into a system and then you're asked to change it, and there are all the interests gaining that system, it's not that easy to unwind and to change to a new system. So you need to have a lot of incentive to move from point A to point B. And it has to be a win-win, and it has to also got to be seen as in your self-interest, and that you don't really have a choice but to start thinking of how to move from point A to point B. Now, the thing is that the developing world is a growing world, and we are going to have a growing middle class. There is going to be increased consumption. We are, in fact, even if we just take Asia alone, and again, because I've been in charge of the Asian region for so long, so I know the figures better. In Asia, 30 will increase by 30%, and by 80% dependent on fossil fuel. And therefore, even if you're not going to change them totally overnight, but how do you develop technologies that are able to have carbon capture, for example, so that you still have a fossil fuel base, then you move towards a new way of dealing with that, so that you actually have a cleaner energy revolution. At the end of the day, what we want to see is a new energy revolution, right? That can sustain growth, and we want to sustain growth and the dynamism of the rising emerging countries, largely because there's still a lot of unfinished agenda, which is the poverty reduction agenda, which is the human well-being agenda. So this is not just growing for the sake of growth, but this is actually growing in a way that will be people-centered and also planet-sensitive. And I think that would be our greatest challenge. How do we actually change our systems and our entrenched interests in such a way that they support people-centered and planet-sensitive growth?
Great, thank you. Yeah. Down with the status quo, that's what we're all about here. So the next question I'm going to direct to Kava. How do we influence regulators? Energy is one of the most regulated industries in the world. Will bypassing regulation be the only way to achieve success?
Rival? It's a tough one. Influencing the regulator, again, it's unless they have the right incentives and the political will, they're not open to changes. And then on the other side, unless you can show them opportunities, they're not willing to move, because status quo is always the easiest for a regulator. The cost of change is always high. Unfortunately, regulators normally function, especially in the developed world, on crisis mode and in reactive mode. You have to see an extreme in order to change and reform and change your regulation, because the social and political cost of changing regulation is very high. And this is what we see, like the Dutch system in the Netherlands is very successful in managing water resources, but any major new regulation has come after a major extreme events with a high cost and a lot of people dying. You see a lot of reform in California in the water sectors that surprise you, because the new rules and regulation coming in should have been there decades ago. But cost of change is always high. And as we discussed, the same thing. So you do it either under pressure, now this being an international pressure, you're under sanction, all of a sudden you might come up with new programs with a lot of subsidies because you want to promote something new. You're under pressure because of an extreme event, or you're under pressure because you're seeing a political uprise. So these are not the right ways of pursuing things, and I think where we have to invest is where their incentives are, and most importantly, the economic incentives. How can we show the governments there are new ways of making money and reducing the cost?
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to take one last question before we go to the lightning round, which is a tradition here at the summit. And this is a really interesting question. So I'm going to start Wasilum, and we'll go to Nolene for it. And if we have time for Kav, I'll get your kind of last chime in there. But how do you feel, or do you feel, that cultural factors will affect and providing energy access or connecting the unconnected?
Why didn't you answer this? This is the United Nations question.
Start with culture, or start with United Nations when it comes to culture. Okay, let's go there.
Okay, what do we mean by culture, right? For me, culture is a core set of values of how we actually define what is important to us. So I think that there is a set of core values that, so that's one is the core set of values. The other one is the fact that culture is not static. Culture is constantly changing. Okay? So it's not like you have culture and that's it, and we don't interact with it. We form our culture, and we, in a sense, also interpret it, right? And therefore, what type of culture do we need to have at this particular time if we are to have a more sustainable and more equitable and more inclusive world? And what I would say is that we have to go back to the core set of values that actually led to the formation of the United Nations after the Second World War. And this is actually human solidarity. It's really about the fact that we cannot live in a world where there is half darkness and half light, half slave and half free. You know, we actually have to have a world where there's greater equality, where there's greater sustainability, where there's freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom from all forms of discrimination. That is the human culture.
Hear, hear.
This is, I agree. Can I add one?
Absolutely, Sloan.
Can I add? No, I remember I was in a panel like this, and the same question, and one of the panelists was coming from UNESCO. So I was suggesting to my colleague in the panel that if I were in your place, I would ask the United Nations or whoever to add to the three pillars of sustainable development, the economic, the social, and the environmental, a fourth pillar, which is cultural. Because it is really very important to be factored in what we are trying to do when it comes to sustainable development goals. You need to change the culture, and you need to rock the boat. And that's what my institution is doing. We are trying to do pioneer works. We are trying to rock a boat.
Great.
Okay?
We like rocking boat around here. Okay. Any last comments?
So I'm not a sociologist, but culture plays a major role when it comes to changes. And I think that's something which has been overlooked and studied less. In the developed, so example is tragedy of the commons that many of you are familiar with. Tragedy of the commons happens when people or users try to maximize their short-term benefits without thinking about the long-term benefits. The result is that the outcomes that everyone loses, so all lose together. The opposite example of tragedy of the commons is the institutions which were formed in underdeveloped parts of the world, where when there is more sense for community movements working together and doing things together. So we have cultural differences. We have a part of the world that people are still less probably self-optimized. They understand the value of doing things together and working within a community. And we have a part of the world which is more responsive to economic incentives. You have to make us, you might not care about the global emission and carbon emissions. As soon as they tell you that your energy bill is going to drop by this percentage, then you're willing to put the solar panels on your roof. But you have another part of the world where you can encourage people to shift and change behavior because of other incentives being more social. So sometimes cost of reform is much lower in developing world and the opportunities are different. I think that's a major thing which needs to be considered.
Great.
Can I? Yes, please. Yeah. Well, this is a very complicated subject. When we talk about culture, actually, we talk from the perspective of asking people or others or policymakers to respect the culture of others. For example, when we talk about the SDGs, then we ask others to respect the culture of the recipients. But also we have to look for the other aspect. You know, let me give you an example. A few months ago, I was in Egypt when I was attending the Sharm el-Sheikh summit. I don't know if we have, do we have any representative from Egypt? I don't know, really.
Yeah,
we have.
there was a-
Welcome, welcome. I was a student in Egypt a long time before you were born, I'm sure. No, in Sharm el-Sheikh, you know, there was a huge conference. There was, everybody's talking about a new paradigm shift in Egypt and a new investment, a new government, a new aspiration, all these things. Okay, now immediately after this conference, I went to Cairo attending another conference with my colleague Fas, we talk about, you know, stuff like this. Then later on, I signed an agreement with the Minister of International Relations, International Cooperation of Egypt, and it was in a closed session. So I told her that, you know, that people in Egypt, when I left Sharm el-Sheikh, they were asking me how this can be implemented. And I was telling them, first of all, you have to change yourself. The change has to come from within. You have change. You Egyptian people, you the people have to change your culture, your attitude, your things. You know, this is, and I told them, even in our holy book in the Quran, there is a verse which says, God will never change people unless they change themselves. This is very clear, you know. It's one of the best things that I would like all to bring to attention. This is, by the way, shared by our culture. I'm sure you can find it in Bible and in the Bible and other books. You know, this kind of you know, conviction and analysis became very clear after I spent 4 or 5 days in Singapore. You know.
Sorry, we're almost out of time.
Yes, okay.
Okay. But I think what you're saying is, it starts with each of us. It starts at the individual level.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so we're doing one last question, but this is an homage to the Twitter generation. So the lightning round is a bit of a tradition at the summit, where we ask one final question, and the answer has to be no more than a sentence. So just a quick last thought for everyone. This is an homage to the Twitter generation who likes 140-character tweets. So, what if you could see one immediate action be taken to advance energy access globally, what would it be?
The voyage of transformation that you need to take is daunting, but it is inspiring. Be the change that we all need to be.
Can I have 1 minute?
We'll come on you last.
I want to use 1 minute to make an announcement for something for their benefit.
After the panel's over.
Okay. Go.
Identify the opportunities and the goods that the developing world can offer in return for investment in energy access.
Great. Okay.
Okay. Shall I?
Solomon?
Yeah, can I connect it with something? It's for the benefit, you know. I cannot
Sure. Go ahead.
You know, I cannot talk to the huge audience one by one, so I would like to the benefit that I have them all. In UFID, we have a master's degree. We have a master's degree program. Wait a minute, no. A master's degree program which started 7 years ago, and it's available to all students from developing countries. Anybody who would like to do his master's degree in sustainable development, which is a very broad subject, urbanization, health education, can apply. It's a very competitive, very tough. I mean, it's only for A students. We have also another one. We have another one with Lindau Foundation. For those who are pursuing their PhD program, we have them and they come and meet with the Nobel Prize laureates in Lindau and somewhere in Europe. This is also available for you. So visit our website and you will get more information about that. You are the agent. You are the agent of change. Try to read the 17 goals and try to implement them with your leaders. Thank you.
And so with that, we're going to close the first panel of the International Student Energy Summit. And I think the number one thing I took away is that we need, each as individuals, to live in that dynamic, changing world and change the way that we see things from a systems level. So thank you so much. And I think we're going to have Hillman up quickly, just give a couple housekeeping notes. Hillman, turn that off. Yep.
Okay, so delegates, what an amazing panel. So I hope you're still excited for the summit. And now I would like to thank for all the speakers and Haley for having great discussions on the stage. And now I have some technical informations. This time we have a coffee break time in pre-function hall just outside this hall. And we invite you, all of you, to mingle with and chat with all the other delegates and speakers. And there are a few interactive sessions for you to check out during the coffee break time. The research corner is just at the top of the escalator and in Legion 1 room. There will be a student interview corner, so everyone who is interested, please stop in and tell me how you think about the future of energy and the sustainable world. And one important note about our social events is that we will be selling drink tickets during the coffee break and lunch days, so at the table near the escalation. If you want to drink anything other than water, you need to purchase the tickets. And at 11 a.m., please note that we will have the first parallel sessions. So be sure to know which room you're going to. And we have 3 sessions in general. The first is investment and risk for sustainable energy venture, right in this room, and energy and women empowerment in Mangwi room, and also energy and human behavior in Tanjung Benoa room on the 3rd floor. So lunch will serve following the breakouts in the pre-function hall. So yeah, so I guess that's all, and yeah, thank you.